There's a lot more merit in bringing in diverse experiences and diverse talent to a table with a lot of different voices that are not often heard. I spent the last 3 years working in a company in a fully global role in primarily emerging countries, and every day I was so impressed by the level of talent, the level of hustle, the level of dedication that these people are bringing to the workplace, and the obstacles that they have to fight every day just for the same opportunities that people in the United States completely take for granted. I wish more companies would look for underrepresented talent in other countries and bringing them those opportunities that they just can't have.
Hey, Money Movers! Welcome to another fabulous episode of Her Money Moves. Today we are here in Miami, Florida with a very special guest. With over 20 years in the field of digital marketing, she has created a name for herself at one of the largest global tech companies in the world. Please welcome the Vice President of Client Experience and Performance at Yahoo, Elyse Estrada. Elyse Estrada, I mean, you have made big moves in tech and in marketing, recently transitioning from Aleph, now to Yahoo. How do you know when it's time to make that change in your career?
Yeah, I think for me, I'm just a very curious individual, and I love learning, and I love just absorbing all types of experiences. And so when I feel like I've either stopped learning or stopped being able to have a real impact is when I kind of start to think about, is there somewhere else that I can be devoting my energy and attention? Because if you're not the CEO of a company, there's a lot of decisions that you can't control. And so trying to fight your way to do something that is just not going to happen just feels like kind of fruitless. So being able to know when your kind of time has come and it's time for you to just jump into something else that you can really dive into and embrace is important.
And did you know somebody at Yahoo? You're on LinkedIn. How'd you cultivate that and make it happen?
Yeah. Well, I love the story because it's been sort of my way that I've gotten all of my jobs is that I started my career really early in digital media when no one knew what they were really doing. And so we all kind of just were figuring it out together. And so I have a lot of really great relationships with people from early in my career. And when I was at H&M, the president of Foursquare, who was my rep early in my career, called me and wanted to have a meeting with me about, H&M kind of becoming a beta advertiser partner. And I got so excited about the opportunities and the data that Foursquare had. And he was like, whoa, you get it. If there's anyone like you, come, I'm hiring. And I was like, why not me? Mm-hmm. So when I was at Foursquare, I got to work with now Rob Wilk, who's the chief revenue officer at Yahoo. And we worked side by side, kind of building the sales team together, in the trenches, just kind of figuring stuff out. And when he got the opportunity to go to Yahoo, he called me out of the blue and was like, what are you doing? I'm starting this new sales team. I want you to run my account management team. And you have to do this with me. And it was just it was everything I wanted. It was I've worked really hard to be somewhere where I can make an impact, where people around me can just lift me up and also empower me to be able to be my best. And that's exactly what Rob is doing for me. And I could not be happier having made that move.
That is incredible. But that shows that, you worked hard and you proved it. And so even when you weren't looking for an opportunity, but he was thinking about you, that you were perfect for this role.
Exactly.
That's incredible. What's been your biggest challenge as a Latina executive in the tech and the media space? And how did you navigate that?
For me, it's always been it was always the Wild West. I mean, not only being a woman, but being young and being Latina, it was all these things kind of nobody out there looked like me in this space at the moment. And so I just kind of had to navigate and figure things out and realize that I don't know all of the things, but what I do know is important. And so regardless of what I look like or what my background is, I'm there to represent my skill set, to represent what I know. And so just kind of leaning on who I am as a person first, and then recognizing that like I have this opportunity to sort of blaze the trail for other people who look like me, who didn't necessarily think that they could be in these types of positions because they didn't see themselves before. So that for me is important too, just being who you can't see.
Yes. And now our money movers know that, hey, you can be a vice president at one of the biggest tech companies in the world.
Yeah.
That is incredible and so proud of you.
Thank you. And even just hearing you say that, like it makes me proud. And I think that's also something that's really important as probably a Latina and even a female. You know, I grew up in a big family. There was a lot of attention, a lot of kind of striving for attention. And so I think also just knowing that like I kind of am a self-starter, I came up in this career kind of accidentally. And the fact that I'm able to be here is just, it's really exciting. So thank you. And I'm really, really grateful to be here.
Thank you. So if you could give yourself, your younger self, a piece of advice before stepping into leadership, what would it be?
It would be just to recognize the importance of a first impression and the type of impression that you leave on people. You don't often recognize like who is going to be important later in your life, who's going to need to hire you, need to fire you, want to work with you, whatever it might be. And again, I think thinking back to a lot of my earlier relationships, I now have so many close friends in the industry because we used to work together. And now being at Yahoo, there's all these people calling me like, hey, are you hiring? Like, I would love to work with you again. And I love that, like, the power of the network is so important. But before that, the power of just like being you and being yourself and being kind is more important because people will remember that later in life.
Absolutely. So as the vice president at Yahoo, you're at the intersection of marketing, media, tech. How do you balance innovation with user trust?
It's a really good question. And I think one of the best parts about being at Yahoo is that we've been around for 30 years. And who else can really say that? And so what we've been doing is building really great mail products, really great finance products, really great fantasy sports products. And we've literally spent so much time over the last couple of years, like redoing every single site. Literally every pixel is new on the sites, in the apps. Like we really believe in building great products for users first, because we have been building great products for users for 30 years. So there's already that like innate trust that the users have in us. So now when we're thinking about things like AI, we're using it to make the journey more personal for the user. If I'm coming onto Yahoo homepage and it knows that I subscribe to these types of newsletters because it's in my Yahoo Mail, or I'm consuming this type of content on Yahoo News or entertainment, then it should be able to personalize that to me when I land on a homepage and make it easier for me to find what it is I'm looking for. And so I think, again, the more that we can do those things and show the end user that we know who they are and what they're looking for, we continue to build that trust, and then we can kind of continue to iterate on all of our products, thinking about that personalization for the end user.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that happens with me. Like whenever I open the search on Yahoo, and then there's always articles of, there's a Forbes article, or it's the entrepreneur, it's, something within that space, or it's real estate,
exactly,
investing.
It knows who you are. And that's, I think, what, there's so much going on. There's all of these things that are competing for your attention. There's TikTok, there's Instagram, there's a million things, but I think people are just getting really overwhelmed, and sometimes it's less is more. And I think people are kind of craving that one-to-one sort of connection again, and not just being bombarded with stuff, but being curated a message of what is important to them.
Mm-hmm. So in an AI-driven world, how do you keep that human connection at the core of people's digital experiences?
I think you need to do a lot of focus groups on what users are actually looking for, and then building AI to solve for that. I think there's a lot of companies that are out there like, we've got an AI solution and it's powered by AI, but okay, but why? Like, what is it actually doing and what is it trained off of? Again, going back to thinking about even just personalizing advertising in your Yahoo mailbox. If we know that you're subscribed to Warby Parker and we know that you just had an eye exam, then we're going to be showing you some ads for glasses because that's probably the market that you're in. And so, again, I think it's just important for the end user to recognize that advertising is not the devil. It's not the, antithesis of what they're looking for. It's something that's going to help them in their day to day. And, being able to sort of know when to create products for people using those types of automated and technologies is important.
Yahoo has been a legacy brand. As you said, it's been around, 30 years. Where do you see it evolving in the next 5 years? And what role do you want to play in that transition?
It's a really fun time to be a part of the company because we're kind of like in this reintroduction of the brand. If you think about it, there's a lot of people that have never heard of Yahoo. They didn't grow up with Yahoo, and a lot of those people are some of the new users that we're trying to bring onto the platform. So, we're kind of trying to bring back like this modern vintage feel, like what the internet was built for, what Yahoo was built for was to be this like digital guide to the wilderness and helping you find what you're trying to look for really quickly. And so kind of just being able to stay true to that, which we have for the last 30 years, is what's going to kind of keep us in that top of mind, because we'll continue to build products that are meant for people, that are based on personalization, and be the trusted source for a lot of news and information. When I was looking for information about the election, I honestly wasn't really a big Yahoo user before I joined, and I only joined 5 months ago. But when it was election time, I was like, I think that Yahoo is going to be the number one like source for unbiased information for me. And I found that. And just in that one instance alone made me more trusting of Yahoo. So now I want to trust more of their products. And I think that that's what we want to do with kind of the industry, is have people just have this small introduction into what Yahoo is doing, and then recognizing there's a lot more problems or things that we can help you with in the future. In terms of where I would love to see myself is really having an impact in the people that we're building this team with. We're kind of starting a sales team from scratch, and I'm very excited that I have a position in leadership where I get to affect the culture and affect the personal development of some of these individuals, because there's a lot of people who've been here for a long time and they can stay for a lot longer. So I want this to be the best job that they've had, where they've learned the most and have the most fun.
Love that. I think anybody would love to come work for you.
I hope so.
Yeah, I actually have a personal experience with Yahoo Finance. I contributed to an article and hope to continue to be a contributor with Yahoo Finance. It was pretty amazing.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is like, we're so open to looking for new voices, and we understand that finance in particular is a very, very big topic that, we can run the gamut from like professional investors or first-time investors or, first-time college, kind of coming out of college with this new debt. And so there's a lot of places that we can kind of go, a lot of communities that we can serve by finding voices like yours that matter. And I think that that's also an exciting thing for Yahoo, is that it's like built for the people, by the people.
What's a marketing trend that excites you the most right now? And what's one that you think is a bit overhyped?
I mean, it's not super new, but I think that like dynamic creative is very interesting in the marketing world. When you think about like, again, all of the messages that people are being bombarded with, all of the ads, it's really great to be able to sort of serve up an ad for you based on what we think that you're going to respond to, and being able to test and learn and use data. Like, that's really exciting for me, because a lot of advertising in the past has been, we're going to throw a bunch of money at it and see if people buy it. And now we can actually be really smart about like, women in this particular demographic are, resonating with this type of creative versus men versus wherever they might be. So I think that that's something that's just going to continue to make ads more powerful, make the experience better for the user. Mm-hmm. I think one of the things that's overhyped is honestly, again, like I said, AI. Just in general, I think people are very quick to throw an AI label on something without thinking about what it is they're trying to do or solve for. My team in particular, when I came in, we started thinking about like, are there ways that automation can make our jobs easier? there's a ton of reporting that we have to pull and like do VLOOKUPs and do all these pivot tables. And like, is that really necessary? Or can we use a tool to kind of help us understand and then use our own brains to prompt the tool to get the insights we're looking for? So I think, I'm very excited about what the future is going to bring in terms of like efficiency and productivity with AI, but it's only as smart as the individual prompter. So that's also something that's important for people to start learning now.
Oh, yes. I can't stand very manual processes that take up so much time, but you'd be surprised of how many corporations still have not embraced the digital landscape yet and are still doing things manually.
Yeah, it's interesting because we were at my last company going through the process of going public. And this was before ChatGPT. And so I, as one of the only native U.S. English speakers in the company at the time, I was also the chief marketing officer, so it worked well in my favor. But I ended up partnering with a woman, and we wrote the entire prospectus for the IPO, for the F1. So we literally labored over every word that we selected to go into that. If I would have had ChatGPT, I could have just fed it like the most important stuff and not had to worry about like how perfectly every word came out. It would have saved us so much time. That, and also just like version control between you have a 500-page document in a Word doc, and now you're sending it with corrections, and then the wrong version got sent, and now people are wasting their time. It's just, it's so archaic, the way that we do things, and I just wish that more corporations could embrace it fast. I understand there's a lot of security concerns and things like that, but learning how to be very responsible about the tech, and again, figuring out what you want to do with it, and not just having like a blanket, we're going to use AI.
So if someone is looking to build a strong personal brand in digital media, what's the one must-do strategy that you recommend?
Networking, whether that is in person, whether that is following people on LinkedIn that you find, inspirational, finding people on TikTok, on Instagram, whoever those people are that you want to kind of follow along. That is super important in terms of just finding out who you want to identify yourself with, and then also making sure that everything around your sort of digital personality reflects who you are and what it is that you stand for. A lot of recruiters will go to your Facebook, your Instagram, your TikTok when you're applying for a job. And that really scares me with this new generation because they're not really thinking about something can be seen later in life.
Yes, I know. I am grateful that like we didn't have the camera phones back when. So, we had fun and nobody was looking or watching.
Exactly. But I also think there was something really special about not having that. Like you didn't have that worry, you didn't have that concern. You could just be in the moment and just have a great time. Now you're constantly like, am I going to get likes on this? Do I look good on this? Like it's not real anymore. It's just a portrayal of who you want to be. So I think, again, the important part is that if you have a persona that you're trying to uphold, that you are the same person on all of those channels. And then when I meet you in person, that also feels authentic to who you are.
Yes. So as a Latina in tech and in media, what barriers still exist and how do we push past them?
I mean, being in a big corporation, it's still kind of an older white man world. And I think that that's going to take a lot of change. But it is important for people like us who are up and coming kind of rising leaders to be very vocal about things that we want to see changed in corporations, policies that we want to see changed. Again, just like, how do we want to be treated? We spend all of our time in the office, more time with our coworkers than anyone else. Like, who do you want to be around in the trenches with? And I think it's more about building companies and cultures that embrace kindness and innovation and creativity. The more of those types of companies and the more of those cultures that start to arise, the others will start to fall. Like you see how, not necessarily all of Wall Street, but there's a lot of financial industry that is just kind of a boys' club. And I've witnessed it. My husband was ex-Wall Street, and it was just kind of really, really fascinating how it's really hard to thrive in cultures where you're kind of fearful, or, in order for someone to win, someone else has to lose. I believe much more in the companies where they are very much open and communicative about how all of us together are helping with all of the greater kind of challenges in the organization, and everything that every individual is doing actually matters. And so just being really vocal about that and having people talk about why what you do is important is what's going to, I think, make people feel like they want to stay somewhere, make people feel like they belong somewhere.
Yes, if you feel valued and you love what you do, I mean, you will go to bat for your supervisor. You will, like work even harder. And I think sometimes they just don't get that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's also hard to really understand what type of a person is going to be in an interview versus when they're in the actual seat. And that's why being around people that you respect, that you can learn from, who respect you, who treat you kindly, is the most important. It doesn't matter if you have the most amazing title on the planet at the greatest company in the world. If you don't feel good waking up in the morning and going to work, don't do it.
Yes, thank you. And I mean, right now, under the current climate, so many layoffs for federal workers. In oil and gas, there's some cuts and reductions. And for people who've been there for more than 20 years, I mean, I was in that spot, right? And I try to remind them, like, you weren't born just to work for this one company your entire life. So I think, with your big, bold moves, what kind of advice can you give to our listeners who maybe they're not happy, like maybe they hate their job and they're not looking forward to getting up in the morning and going there? What kind of advice can you give to them?
That's really hard because I think most people don't love what they do. And what you really have to be super introspective about what it is that makes you happy. Like I'm a big believer in like the Japanese art of ikigai, where it's like finding your purpose. Like if you can figure out like what you love doing, what the world needs, like what you can get paid to do, when you find that intersection, it just like it matters. And so I spend a lot of time doing silly things like personality quizzes or like the Gallup strengths assessment to understand like what are my strengths and how can I sort of lean on those first, because I think there's a lot of what we've been taught to do is kind of, oh, you're bad at math, let's give you more math tutoring, instead of like you're excellent at creative writing, let's put you in a creative writing course. Like we always are course correcting for what we can't do. And I think leading with strengths is a much more important and impactful way to get what you want. Because if I know that leading people is a strength of mine, then I'm going to go look for manager positions. Again, it doesn't really matter what the company is. It matters what I get to do and who I get to do it with every day.
Love that. What should women in business look for in a great mentor, and how can they attract the right sponsors?
I think it's important to find people that you can identify with from like a values perspective. There are a lot of people that I admire a ton in this space, but I just don't feel like we would have the same type of, integrity and on some levels. And I just would prefer to have people that are really real, that I can identify with and look that out, versus like, you're the most important person in this industry with the, highest thought leadership. It's more around like, I like up and coming kind of mentors and sponsors. And so for me, it's also just, it's finding that kind of naturally. I don't think it's you having to go out and like look for something. It's just, there's probably someone you've come across in your career, either you've worked with or seen, that you did have that connection with, and just being able to find ways to keep connecting with that person throughout your career is important.
And confidence is key, especially in an executive leadership like yourself. What advice do you have for women who are stepping into rooms where we are few and far between?
I love this question because it really reminded me about the first time I was invited to speak on a panel. And I was at H&M. And I was really kind of early in my career, but we were starting doing digital marketing before a lot of other retailers were. So I was on a panel with Victoria's Secret, Macy's, Estee Lauder, really, really prestigious, renowned brands. These women CMOs were like very impressive. And a lot of the questions from the panelists started coming about digital media and your social media strategy and what are you doing with this and how are you doing that? And every question that came, these women were looking at me to answer. And I was like, oh my God, like I'm the digital kid in the room and these women are looking for my advice. And in that moment, I recognized that like I'm the expert. The reason I'm sitting in this chair is because somebody asked me to be here to provide my experience, my expertise on this specific topic. And so I know this better than anyone. And that was what like really gave me confidence. And so now anytime I walk into a room, I'm invited there, first of all. I'm invited there for a reason. And so I make sure that I am, participating thoughtfully by providing my, whatever it is, my perspective on a situation. I have very different experience. I have very different upbringing from other people. So the way that I see something is very valuable. It's also very valuable the way other people see things. So again, just knowing that you have a certain subject matter expertise and that is what people are bringing you in for gives you all the confidence that you need.
Love that. So we need to own it, right?
Yes,
own
exactly.
our value.
Yeah, know your worth and then just act accordingly.
So STEM industries are still male dominated. What would you say to women who feel overlooked or undervalued in these spaces?
I think it's, again, just about like finding a way to make your voice heard. Figure out a way to make yourself visible. If it is aligning with a male counterpart to get you there, you need to use the resources that are at your fingertips. And so, but it's, again, about being vocal and making space for yourself. It takes a long time to get to the table. And once you get to the table, you got to like put your arms out, like make some space. Throw them both.
Get out the way. Get out the way.
Exactly.
If you could create one policy or initiative to support women in tech, what would it be?
It would definitely be like having a mandatory coach since like early in your career. Not until I was kind of managing a team of 50 people did I get the opportunity to have a professional coach. And just being able to talk to someone, just to articulate your feelings with zero judgment. And it's like therapy, right? Like you just keep talking and then you yourself will come to realizations. But having that opportunity, having that safe space, having someone who is there, who is 100% on your side is invaluable. And you don't get that from peers. You don't get that from family because everyone in your family, everyone in your peers is like looking for you and they're like, oh, but you're the best. But your coach could be like, well, maybe let's look at the situation. Like, did you approach this in the right way? And you learn a lot more about yourself through the eyes of other people.
I couldn't agree more. It shouldn't just be when you get to that executive level. I mean, how powerful is that? If when you first start, it should be there for early career opportunities so that it can help them navigate their career.
Yeah.
Otherwise you're just, you're like in the wilderness, you're not really sure. And especially if you're first time college grad and first time, having a career like that.
Yeah. And you're also probably too intimidated or embarrassed to ask for help. You're not going to because you think that's a sign of weakness. And so this is just another way of getting that help without asking for it and realizing that it's probably much more needed than you thought it was.
Yes. So, of course, in your position, I mean, you have a very large budget that you manage. Because this is our, women's empowerment, financial empowerment podcast. Can you talk to us a bit about how you are not only managing the talent on your team and, of course, delivering the product, but also ensuring that you are managing that P&L?
Yeah.
And how did you get that experience?
I love this question too. For me, it's about like the human capital. I don't like that word necessarily, but I was working full time my whole career. And then I found myself consulting and I was at an agency and I was getting paid hourly. And I was on certain projects. And if there was a certain project where I was only I was only billable for so many hours, I would always end up, going over those hours because I love to make things beautiful and I'm, an overachiever. But I did this week over week and I recognized like I'm losing 5 hours here, 5 hours this week. That means 5 hours that I'm not spending with my husband, 5 hours I'm not spending working out, 5 hours I'm not spending doing anything else I would like to do. So I really think about like, what is your like personal sort of hourly rate? And don't do anything that's below that. If there are, like I said, reports that are super cumbersome to compile and that's going to take you 3 hours to do, is that worth that hourly rate that you set for yourself? Probably not. So can you find a better way to do that faster, or can you delegate that to someone else? And that's also super empowering. So I look at kind of managing a budget in terms of how can I maximize the productivity of the individual, meaning how am I going to make sure that they are like challenged and they're being strategic about the work and they're not just producing. And that way kind of like you get the most out of everyone, because now you're getting the best brains on the best sort of levels of projects, and the stuff that really doesn't matter isn't getting as much attention or is being found a solution through automation or something else.
Yes, love that. So I don't know if you've experienced this, but I mean, there's been many times in my career where, there was a stereotype, and quite frankly, it was very offensive. I mean, I remember being overseas in China, and we had a nice dinner and gathering of our employees and their spouses and partners. And so many women coming up to me and it's like, oh, so which one is your husband? Which group does your husband work in? And I'm like, no, actually, your husband works for me.
I love that.
But, it's like, it can be agitating. Like, have you experienced anything like that? And like, how did you handle it? I mean, because you're young and beautiful and, I can only imagine.
Thank you. No, it's been very difficult. And I think it starts off when you're a kid and, adults come up to you and they're like, oh, you're so pretty. Like, oh, look at you. You're just so pretty. And do you think that you're worth? And so then when you get to a level where you really want to be taken seriously, that voice is still in the back of your mind. So any room I walk into most of the time, I know I'm there. Like I said, I have this experience. I have this subject matter expertise, but I can't help but wonder if anyone's actually paying attention to me because of my subject matter expertise or because I'm attractive and they enjoy looking at me and they're not really paying attention. So that's something that I think, I'll constantly grapple with. But at the end of the day, I just have to know that I can't change other way other people think. And I just have to be who I am and just push past it.
Oh, yeah. And they're not worth your energy.
No. And guess what? I'm going to win you over because I'm going to be smart and I'm going to say the right things.
Absolutely. I mean, one of our guests, Monica Mantilla, she said, kill them with competence.
Exactly.
Bam.
Love that. Come with the data.
Yes. So what impact do you hope to leave on the industry and the next generation?
The impact that I want to leave is being able to show people that you can get to very high levels while being very kind, while not having to burn bridges, while not having to, climb over other people.
Thank you for saying that. I think there is this false misconception. It is a myth. You don't have to treat other people so bad, in order to get ahead and climb the ladder. But they will do that. And it's like, no, don't create that kind of environment at work. It's not necessary.
Right. And so if you see people doing that, you need to say something. You need to call that behavior out. And I think that what I am very impressed with this new generation is like, they don't take shit. They will let you know if they don't like something or if they don't feel like they're being treated fairly. And I think that is so impressive that they've found their voice, that they've figured out a way to talk about it. And I wish that for more of us. And I think especially as a Latina, we are taught to just shut up and be quiet and be happy with whatever we're dealt with. And that's also very hard to kind of get over as an individual, because I have, my parents being like, "Ay, mija, but are you sure you can be taking that much vacation?" I'm like, yes, it's literally in my policy, but they're afraid, like, oh, you're not showing that you're there. I'm like, yes, I am. Vacation is important.
Yes, it is. You need to take that time off and to rejuvenate, right?
Yeah,
recharge. And how can people support your work and your career or any initiatives that you're passionate about?
I'm glad you asked, because I am on the national board of directors for a Hispanic nonprofit called Prospanica. And we basically serve to help, empower the careers and the lives of future Hispanic leaders. And so we have a number of mentorship programs, conferences, all kinds of things. So I definitely encourage anyone to, go to prospanica.org, check it out, join our webinars, and just it's a great community. It's a great way to give back, to network, and just, again, to be around people who understand what you're going through.
So let's do some fun questions. In a world without Wi-Fi for a week, what would you be doing?
Oh my God, I'd love it. I would just go to a beach with a bunch of books that I have been meaning to read for such a long time, and would really, really enjoy just being in nature without any other connectivity, without any pressures, just doing what I want to do.
Beach, and also, I guess, the snow caps too?
Yes. Any type of outdoors, either I'm skiing or I'm on the beach or I'm hiking or I'm kayaking, just being out in nature is my church.
Awesome. If you weren't in tech and media, what other career would you love to try?
I would love to be a university professor. I think that it's, again, having so many experiences that I've had in corporate America as a woman, as a Latina, as all of these different intersections of things, there's so much that I want to teach or want to help people understand about the corporate world and navigating through it. And I just think that would be so amazing to be able to impact, again, the next generation from not making some of the mistakes that I made, or learning from some of the things that people did before them.
Awesome. Professor Estrada.
Let's hope so.
Of course it's going to happen.
Nice.
We just manifested it.
I will.
So you've already accomplished so much. What's next for you, both professionally and personally?
I think it's really now for me about making sure that what I do is personally rewarding and like professionally sort of impactful. So again, like I've said, now that I'm at Yahoo and I have an opportunity to have an amazing team of, 50 individuals, that I get to personally grow and see how they progress through their career, and being able to kind of individually have not a program, but knowing them as individuals and then figuring out like where is it that they really should be. I believe a lot in like getting the right people on the bus, getting the right people off the bus, getting the wrong people off the bus, and then getting the right people the right seat. And so, you could be at Yahoo now and you have been here for 20 years in this one position, but have you had a chance to look around and see all the other things around you that you could be doing? And that's what I like to do, is help people see like what the broader picture is behind what they could do. Because you don't want to wake up one day and say like, "Ugh, I'm bored. I've been doing this my whole life." You want to wake up excited about what you get to do.
Yes, absolutely. And what are you dreaming bigger about next?
I'm dreaming about just more companies who care a lot about culture and care a lot about individual growth, and recognizing that like the individuals in a corporation are the most important. The workers on the ground are the most important. I have been through a number of layoffs, of, reduction in forces, of reorganizations, whatever you want to call them. And a lot of times companies will cut from the very bottom without cutting at the very top. And I think a lot of that is problematic. And so I would just really encourage companies to think about who is going to serve the next wave of this company. It's not the people up here that are looking for retirement. It's the people that are at the bottom looking to kind of grow through this company. So I just hope that more people pay attention to the workers on the front lines.
Yes. Well, Elyse, thank you so much for being here today. I mean, it's incredible. Anybody who is working on your team and with you is so lucky to have you, because it can see, you have a genuine heart and care and thoughtfulness about what you do and how you help to improve other people's lives. And that is beautiful. It's missing too much in today's corporate world. And so thank you so much for being here and sharing your journey and your insights, and sharing your beautiful heart with us.
Thank you. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here and share all of that with you. Because I think it's really, it's not said enough. And I think more people need to just talk about how, we are all trying to be our best selves. So let's help everyone else around us. We'll all be best.
Yes. And thank you.
Thank you.